so it looked to-day, even to the rather startling detail of candles, which did duty on every side in place of gas. As Violet recalled the reason for this, the fascination of the past seized upon her imagination. There was no knowing where this might have carried her, had not the feverish gleam in Miss Digby's eyes warned her that the present held its own excitement. Instantly she was all attention, and listening with undivided mind to that lady's disclosures. They were brief, and to the following effect. The dinner, which had brought some half-dozen people together in this house, had been given in celebration of her impending marriage, but it was also, in a way, meant as a compliment to one of the other guests, a Mr. Spielhagen, who, during the week, had succeeded in demonstrating to a few experts the value of a discovery he had made which would transform a great industry. In speaking of this discovery, Miss Digby did not go into particulars, the whole matter being far beyond her understanding. But in stating its value, she openly acknowledged that it was in the line of Mr. Cornell's own work, and one which involved calculations and a formula which, if prematurely disclosed, would invalidate the contract Mr. Spielhagen hoped to make, and thus destroy his present hopes. Of this formula but 2 copies existed. One was locked up in a safe deposit vault in Boston. The other he had brought into the house on his person, and it was the latter which was now missing, it having been abstracted during the evening from a manuscript of 16 or more sheets, under circumstances which he would now endeavour to relate. Mr. Van Brooklyn, their host, had in his melancholy life but one interest which could be called at all absorbing. This was for explosives. As a consequence, much of the talk at the dinner table had been on Mr. Spielhagen's discovery, and the possible changes it might introduce into this especial industry. As these, worked out from a formula kept secret from the trade, could not but affect greatly Mr. Cornell's interests, she found herself listening intently when Mr. Van Brooklyn, with an apology for his interference, ventured to remark that if Mr. Spielhagen had made a valuable discovery in this line, so had he, and one which he had substantiated by many experiments. It was not a marketable one, such as Mr. Spielhagen's was, but in his work upon the same, and in the tests which he had been led to make, he had discovered certain instances he would gladly name, which demanded exceptional procedure to be successful. If Mr. Spielhagen's method did not allow for these exceptions, nor make suitable provision for them, then Mr. Spielhagen's method would fail more times than it would succeed. Did it so allow and so provide? It would relieve him greatly to learn that it did. The answer came quickly. Yes, it did. But later, and after some further conversation, Mr. Spielhagen's confidence seemed to wane, and before they left the dinner table he openly declared his intention of looking over his manuscript again that very night, in order to be sure that the formula therein contained duly covered all the exceptions mentioned by Mr. Van Brooklyn. If Mr. Cornell's countenance showed any change at this moment, she, for one, had not noticed it. But the bitterness with which he remarked upon the other's good fortune in having discovered this formula, of whose entire success he had no doubt, was apparent to everybody, and naturally gave point to the circumstances which a short time afterward associated him with the disappearance of the same. The ladies, there were 2 others besides herself, having withdrawn in a body to the music-room, the gentlemen all proceeded to the library to smoke. Here conversation, loosed from the one topic which had hitherto engrossed it, was proceeding briskly, when Mr. Spielhagen, with a nervous gesture, impulsively looked about him and said, "I cannot rest till I have run through my thesis again. Where can I find a quiet spot? I won't be long. I read very rapidly." It was for Mr. Van Brooklyn to answer, but no word coming from him, every eye turned his way, only to find him sunk in one of those fits of abstraction so well known to his friends, and from which no one who has this strange man's peace of mind at heart ever presumes to rouse him. What was to be done? These moods of their singular host sometimes lasted half an hour, and Mr. Spielhagen had not the appearance of a man of patience. Indeed, he presently gave proof of the great uneasiness he was laboring under. For noticing a door standing ajar on the other side of the room, he remarked to those around him, "A den, and lighted. Do you see any objection to my shutting myself in there for a few minutes?" No one venturing to reply, he rose, and giving a slight push to the door, disclosed a small room, exquisitely panelled and brightly lighted, but without one article of furniture in it, not even a chair. "The very place," quoth Mr. Spielhagen, and lifting a light cane-bottomed chair from the many standing about, he carried it inside and shut the door behind him. Several minutes passed, during which the man who had served at table entered with a tray, on which were several small glasses, evidently containing some choice liqueur. Finding his master fixed in one of his strange moods, he set the tray down, and pointing to one of the glasses, said, "That is for Mr. Van Broecklyn. It contains his usual quieting powder." And urging the gentlemen to help themselves, he quietly left the room. Mr. Upjohn lifted the glass nearest him, and Mr. Cornell seemed about to do the same, when he suddenly reached forward, and catching up one further off, started for the room in which Mr. Spielhagen had so deliberately secluded himself. Why he did all this, why, above all things, he should reach across the tray for a glass, instead of taking the one under his hand, he can no more explain than why he has followed many another unhappy impulse. Nor did he understand the nervous start given by Mr. Spielhagen at his entrance, or the stare with which that gentleman took the glass from his hand and mechanically drank its contents, till he saw how his hand had stretched itself across the sheet of paper he was reading, in an open attempt to hide the lines visible between his fingers. Then indeed the intruder flushed, and withdrew in great embarrassment, fully conscious of his indiscretion, but not deeply disturbed till Mr. Van Broecklyn, suddenly arousing and glancing down at the tray placed very near his hand, remarked in some surprise, "Dobbs seems to have forgotten me." Then indeed the unfortunate Mr. Cornell realized what he had done. It was the glass intended for his host which he had caught up and carried into the other room, the glass which he had been told contained a drug. Of what folly he had been guilty, and how tame would be any effort at excuse. Attempting none, he rose, and with a hurried glance at Mr. Upjohn, who flushed in sympathy at his distress, he crossed to the door he had so lately closed upon Mr. Spielhagen. But feeling his shoulder touched as his hand pressed the knob, he turned to meet the eye of Mr. Van Broecklyn, fixed upon him with an expression which utterly confounded him. "Where are you going?" that gentleman asked. The questioning tone, the severe look, expressive at once of displeasure and astonishment, were most disconcerting, but Mr. Cornell managed to stammer forth, "Mr. Spielhagen is in here consulting his thesis. When your man brought in the cordial, I was awkward enough to catch up your glass and carry it in to Mr. Spielhagen. He drank it, and I'm anxious to see if it did him any harm." As he uttered the last word, he felt Mr. Van Broecklyn's hand slip from his shoulder, but no word accompanied the action, nor did his host make the least move to follow him into the room. This was a matter of great regret to him later, as it left him for a moment out of the range of every eye, during which he says he simply stood in a state of shock at seeing Mr. Spielhagen still sitting there, manuscript in hand, but with head fallen forward and eyes closed. Dead, asleep, or he hardly knew what, the sight so paralyzed him. Whether or not this was the exact truth and the whole truth, Mr. Cornell certainly